Hello, folks, and welcome to yet another edition of Everyone is Entitled to One Good Scare, the Arkove's exclusive Halloween franchise podcast. We are your hosts, the brothers Blanchard. I am one half of that group. I am Matthew J. Blanchard. With me, as always,
is Patrick J. Blanchard, 3/6 of that group.
Next week, what are you going to do? Are you going to be 5/10? Because the last episode,
I was 4/8.
you were 4/8. I mean, are we moving forward?
You'll just have to tune in and see.
Or are we just going to, bounce around until finally you're like 8/16?
We're just going to bounce. I don't know.
30 seconds.
Because I totally hate fractions.
Okay. Well, last episode, we talked about Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers.
Man, it's cursed.
And I've done this thing in all of our sequel conversations where I've been like, all right, the public perception was that the franchise was dead, but the reality was plans were moving forward instantly for the next one. This is the first one where the public perception and the actual perception are not far off.
Man, that movie sucked. I bet you the next one's going to come out direct to video.
That is exactly what Miramax thinks.
Also,
Miramax lost.
Is
Yeah, Miramax is the key now.
Well,
it's not, what Mustafa wants.
Yeah.
It's now whether or not Miramax is willing to bankroll it. And Miramax saw the returns of Halloween 6 and said, okay, we have no confidence in this as a franchise.
No.
Theatrically. So the next one is we're going to fix it. We're going to start over. And it's going to be straight to video. We're going to do this the way we do the Hellraisers. They're like, we have no confidence in this as a franchise.
However, they do have confidence in the...
They have confidence in the secondary market.
Okay,
They realize people are going to... The small number of fans who are going to watch this movie, $15 million worth, are going to watch this movie, whether it's on VHS or whether it's in a theater.
Also, in 96, when it's released on video for rental and video sales, they look at those figures and are like,
That's not bad.
That's not bad. That seems way better than a movie that made $15 million should be.
Right. They realize that there is a post-secondary market. And they're going to cater to that. But they don't trust that it's going to be gangbusters in a theater. And then Scream comes out.
Yeah.
And Scream realigns everything. But not immediately for Halloween.
No.
Because Miramax continues to proceed with this straight-to-video Halloween movie. And it's on path. This is where we're headed. We're not doing a theatrical release Halloween movie. It's not going to happen.
We're also not going to further the adventures of Tommy Doyle and
Right.
Kara Strode and Danny Strode and the Curse of Thorn and the leftovers of the Jamie Lloyd trilogy.
Right.
That's done, guys. If even D2V, it's going to be something completely fresh and new.
Right.
Because we don't want to be hamstrung by that crap any longer.
Exactly.
Says Bob Weinstein.
And the idea is to kind of just move into a new era for the franchise where Michael is off doing other things, not necessarily hunting down a family member.
Yep.
And there's a draft that comes through that is Michael Myers at a boarding school.
Yes.
Which is important because that will become the backbone of this movie when the world changes. Because there is a tectonic shift. And it's not when Scream comes out. Because Scream comes out and suddenly there is an appetite for new content. A vaguely referential content. There's not a, hey, let's pick up and redo Hellraiser. Hey, let's pick up and redo Halloween.
I liken it to the scene in Jaws.
Yeah.
Where the mayor goes, you say barracuda. And people go, what? Huh? Mm-hmm. But you say shark. Suddenly you got everybody's attention.
Right.
Scream is Barracuda. What? Huh? Mm-hmm. The shark moment does not come right away, like you said.
Right.
It's my analogy. I like it.
It's a good analogy. And the shark moment comes when someone else reacts to Scream. In the context of the shark moment for Halloween H20.
Yeah.
That changes the nature of what this movie is. When Scream comes out and everybody's like, oh wow, that references Halloween. Halloween's great. We love this Scream movie. It's still, all right, put the next one on video.
Yeah.
When Jamie Lee Curtis comes in and goes, hey, I saw that Scream movie, and you know what? The 20th anniversary of Halloween is like in a year and a half, guys. We should do something to honor that. I'd like to do that, and I'd like to work with that guy who wrote Scream. The world tilts on its axis, and Miramax goes, well, obviously it's theatrical. Like that.
I also imagine there's this moment that flows through Mustafa's head when he gets word of this, going, where was this 10 years ago at the 10th anniversary?
Not on the backs of Wes Craven's Scream, written by Kevin Williamson. And I'm sure Mustafa's bright enough to kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
So instantly, Jamie Lee Curtis is like, I want to do a 20th anniversary. Let's do it. I want that guy who wrote Scream to write it because that movie was so good and it referenced us left, right, and center. Let's bring him in. And he comes in as a producerial role and takes a pass at it, but does not actually write the script. He doesn't do like a complete page one rewrite, which he could have done, which is what, in effect, Jamie wanted. He's still like, okay, let's just take what you have and let's pass through this writer who I like and will hire.
Who has already written a draft.
Who's already written a draft, and I trust his voice to write the draft. And I'll just do a polish after the fact to clean things up.
There's also some interesting sidebars on that, in that he did a lot more, ended up doing a lot of on-set writing. And the producers, the Weinsteins, wanted to be able to put on every poster from the writer of Scream.
Yes.
So they were like, we're going to get you a writing credit. So they went to Robert Zappia, the writer.
Yeah.
And was like, we want to bring Kevin Williamson in on the credits.
Yeah. And
Robert Zappia said no.
Yeah. I mean, as well you might expect. He's like, I wrote this thing, man, not him.
And they're like, no, we need this. So he's like,
this is how we sell this movie, dude. We're selling this on two names, Kevin Williamson and Jamie Lee Curtis.
And I like...
Not Michael Myers. It's not the Myers name that's going to bring people to this. It's Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's Kevin Williamson, writer of Scream.
And his response ultimately was like,
yeah.
See, I'm a member of this guild.
Yep.
You know, this union.
Yes. The WGA, motherfuckers.
So what you need to do is go talk to them and present your theory to them based on the percentages that they make the decision if they get a credit by.
Exactly.
And the Weinsteins are like, what? He's like, no. I know how this works, guys. I've been around. So the Weinsteins go to the WGA, and the WGA looks at their figures and goes, no, he didn't do enough to get the credit. And they're like, but what about all the onset rewrites? They're like, that is an onset rewrite. That is not a draft. That is not a percentage of a draft.
Yep.
You have to have X amount of a percentage of a draft to be credited as a writer.
Yep.
And we're sorry, we like Kevin Williamson, but no.
And that is when they go to the PGA and get him a producerial credit.
Yes.
So yes, Kevin Williamson is in. He's here. He's gonna do it. He helps. He shapes together with Robert Zappia, mostly Zappia's work, a draft that includes Jamie Lee Curtis, that includes Laurie Strode. There's a first draft that includes more than just Laurie Strode. There's a first draft that includes references to 4, 5, and 6. and those are summarily cut
Yes.
on Miramax's orders. Not on Jamie Lee Curtis, not on Kevin Williamson, not on Zappia, not on Mustafa Akkad. All of those people were at one point perfectly fine with a draft that restored Laurie Strode to existence and kept Jamie Lloyd in existence.
Yes.
It was Miramax that said, no, fuck that. Just clean break it. Let's not spend a lengthy period of time at the beginning of this movie reintroducing a storyline we're getting rid of. That decision, however, is not made until we're already shooting.
Yeah. There are a bunch of decisions in this movie that aren't made
until we're actually shooting, yeah.
Whole plot lines.
Whole plot lines. So the first thing is they go to John Carpenter. It's the 20th anniversary. John, will you direct this movie? And John famously, in interviews, said, I sat down and I talked to them and I said, lots of luck, everybody. I'm out. He never said why until recently. Recently, he said, they didn't offer me enough money.
Yes.
They were not going to pay me what I'm worth as John Carpenter to make this movie. So I said no.
Their counter argument has always been couched in language that now makes more sense. In 1998, John Carpenter wasn't John Carpenter anymore.
Right. But Carpenter wasn't offered as much to make Halloween as he made making John Carpenter's Vampires.
Yeah.
So he was still somewhat John Carpenter.
Yes, but
more than Miramax thought he was worth.
He tried to play the name game with the Weinsteins,
and they said no.
Yeah.
But then he went and he made another movie for another company, and he didn't get as much as he asked for. He says that on the commentary track for that movie.
Yeah.
But he got more than he would have got to make Halloween H20. So we bring in another director, and we this is where we have the connection to our first deep dive podcast series, Crystal Lake Revisited, because we bring in Steve Miner, director of Friday the 13th Part 2 and Part 3.
Yes. And he's only brought in because of Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes, who worked with him on which movie?
Forever Young.
Forever Young, yes. The Mel Gibson Frozen in Time movie, which is a cute little movie. It's well directed, but the involvement of Miner connects back to many different things.
Yes.
He's brought in because of Jamie Lee Curtis and Forever Young. He's also brought in because of his name ends up on the list for Jamie Lee to look at. Like, she doesn't single him out and go, let's go to this Steve Miner guy who directed this movie I made 6 years ago. She gets a list of directors from Miramax.
Oh, I know this.
I know him. He was great to work with. Let's hire him. His name is on that list because producer Kevin Williamson had just worked with him on season 1 of Dawson's Creek.
Which shot well in advance of it airing.
But Miner directed, I think, 4 episodes that season, the first season. The pilot and a couple others.
Yeah.
Key episodes that season were directed by Steve Miner. So he had a good working relationship producerially with Kevin Williamson. Kevin Williamson, who knew he was going to be in a somewhat producerial role on this film.
Which then, in turn, leads to a casting of one of the teen characters.
Exactly.
Molly, as played by...
Oh my God, you lost
Michelle
Williams.
I was going to call her Jen Lindley.
Right. But she is Jen Lindley. I mean, but it all kind of snowballs from there into Steve Miner is directing a Halloween after having directed 2 Fridays.
Yes.
And produced 4?
He was producer on 3, just 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, and 3, yeah. I couldn't remember
because
if he had a producer credit on 4 or not.
After 3D, he's like, I need much like Sean Cunningham to move on.
Right. So they They take Zappia's script. They get shooting in California. Yeah. And this is the first movie to return to California.
Yes.
And ironically, it sets itself in California as well for the majority of the film. So they get shooting, and they shoot for a grand total of 3 weeks before Miramax goes, okay, this isn't working. We want this gone. We want this gone. This is stupid. And the production is shut down for another 3 weeks, while the script is rejiggered again to remove certain elements, particularly references to 4, 5, and 6. And a lot of references to Sam Loomis and a cop character who we don't know a lot about, but we do know a lot about.
Yeah.
Because we know who was cast to play this cop character, who was described as hunting Michael Myers. And he was Charles S. Dutton. It was Rock. He was cast, and his role was to sort of be the torchbearer for Sam Loomis.
Yes.
And he was meant to be a Haddonfield detective, or a detective who found his way onto the case, who followed Michael from Illinois to California, setting up a largely a parallel arc where he's the one hunting Michael, and Laurie ends up fighting back against Michael until the new Loomis effectively shows up. And while they're sort of redrafting, this is when Jamie Lee Curtis is like, no, Laurie needs to do that herself. Laurie needs her Ripley moment. And that's what it ends up getting called in every behind-the-scenes making-of featurette. Because she doesn't feel that Laurie, 20 years later, needs to carry out effectively the same arc.
Right.
Where, she helps people survive, and then someone else comes in and quietly deals with her problem. She wants to face it head on herself. So the first thing that comes out is the Charles S. Dutton character. Boom. Bye.
He's got also...
After 3 weeks.
His introduction
was
tied completely to the 4, 5, 6 stuff.
Yes.
You throw 4, 5, 6 out.
You throw 4, 5, 6 out, you don't necessarily have to lose him.
You don't have to lose
him.
him.
You have to restructure and rewrite all of his intro scenes. But if you take him out, well, then Jamie gets her big damn hero moment that she feels Laurie deserves. And she's right. Laurie deserves that moment 20 years later.
Yes.
Doesn't need to be Sam's moment. Sam's moment is 78. Her moment is 98.
I've read one of the versions of that script.
Yeah.
The point was Halloween 7, The Revenge of Laurie Strode.
Yes.
And
there's not a whole lot of revenging
on
Laurie Strode's behalf. That title sets you up for something that script, I've read it as well, doesn't deliver.
Yes.
H20 delivers on that premise.
Yeah.
And it's because of this 3-week production shutdown where everything gets kind of reshaped. And when they pick back up, the train is already on the rails for a summer 98 release, and it's moving fucking fast.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of time to deviate. So the movie that they pick back up on production when they come back from their shutdown is exactly the movie that we get. Which is rare.
It's rare.
Halloweens get a lot of reshoots. They get, that has been a prominent part of the Halloween process since Halloween 4. Like, you shoot the movie, and then there's reshoots. You shoot 5, then there were reshoots. You shoot 6, there were extensive fucking reshoots. Halloween 7, no reshoots.
Well, no.
It's all
principle, but it has this weird thing where there are reshoots within principle.
Yes.
Because they have to reshoot.
They have to reshoot some of the initial footage that was shot in those first 3 weeks.
And some of the stuff on the campus. Because they decided during this 3 weeks to change the mask.
Yes.
Like the scene where Laurie and Michael come face to face. You've seen the trailer. It's the other mask.
It's the other mask, exactly.
So that entire sequence had to be reshot.
Exactly.
So it's a weird thing. Technically, reshoots didn't happen. It just happened.
There
during...
wasn't any money for them
Yeah.
because they had to use them to cover the 3-week production delay and the additional weeks on the schedule added for the reshoots.
So they just
For the reshoots, but the
So they tacked it onto the
extended shoots.
continuing
Yeah.
principal photography.
Exactly.
So technically, there are no reshoots.
There are no reshoots.
However, there are entire sequences
that were shot multiple times in principal photography.
This is a weird thing, and I find it fascinating. It's very boring, but I find it fascinating.
Yes. And before we get into the plot corner, which is, really on the rails and moves very fast.
Teacher to be killed by the boogeyman.
Yes, teacher to be killed by the boogeyman. There is the mask controversy, which you just touched on. The mask, which is delivered by multiple companies multiple times. There is an initial mask that was created by K&B.
There's the
K&B did the first one, and it was based on Steve Miner's description of what he wanted.
Yes, that's
which
the one.
is the wrong mask.
Which is the one that I just talked about, having to be. You can see it in the trailer, and it needs to be shot. He looks like he's questioning chimpanzee.
Yes.
He looks like Curious George.
It's very featureless, and that. Not in the way that the Michael Myers mask in Halloween 1 is featureless because it is spray painted white. It is because there are literally no features on it. It's just a blank canvas.
There's the hint of a nose.
A hint of a nose.
A hint of these weird cheekbones, like these bulbous, puffed out chimpanzee cheekbones.
It turns out that those aren't actually a feature of the mask. That's
Chris Duran's face.
No, that's
out?
padding put in there to try to recreate cheekbones. When someone on set says, no, the original mask had cheekbones.
Oh, okay.
That's why they look so weird.
Okay.
They're not actually in the sculpt.
I always thought if they could figure out a way to get rid of that stupid bulge, the mask might have worked.
Apparently it didn't. And then they go to John Carl Bickler. Bickler, who sculpted the Halloween 6 mask as an approximation of the Shatner mask.
Yeah.
Since they couldn't get the license to use it again. Since Don Post had sold what they had and didn't own it anymore. Nobody did.
Right.
Nobody had that license anymore to recreate the Halloween 1 mask. That license had sort of vanished after Halloween 4, which is why for Halloween 5 and Halloween 6, the masks had to be constructed from the ground up. So, Bickler, who comes up a lot... We should just do a John Carl Bickler podcast where we just talk about John Carl Bickler.
Ooh,
or we should interview John Carl Bickler for our podcast.
We'd have to watch Prison.
Well, yeah. So he sculpts a toned back version of what they made for 6.
Yes.
A cleaner version that doesn't look like it's been worn for many years. Which is that is what we see through the bulk of the movie. Is that mask.
With the big eye holes.
Big eye holes.
Which resembles very much the for sale mask called The Mask.
Yes.
Which Don Post put out from it was 85, 86, 87, 88, 89.
Yep, exactly. So, but Miramax doesn't really like that mask. So Miramax hires Stan Winston to make a sort of compromise mask, which ends up being the one we see for almost a full third of the movie, which looks almost like the Bickler mask, but not really, and doesn't look anything like the K&B mask. And then there's a digital mask.
Then there's one shot with the digital mask.
Which looks terrible. But the mask is a constantly evolving process, and nobody gets it 100% right. But the one you see kind of the most in action shots is the Bickler mask. The one you see the most in beauty shots and close-ups is the Stan Winston mask. And there's a few random shots of the K&B mask.
They could not eliminate it.
Right.
The biggest one I saw last time I watched it was right after Laurie stabs him with the flag.
Exactly.
But if
the
you watch...
opening sequence is almost entirely the Bickler mask.
Yes.
Which looks the most effective. Because it really does look the closest to the Shatner mask. because it was literally done using photo reference from the poster for Halloween 1.
Yeah.
It's the only one that's actually conceptually designed to look like Michael Myers. But moving into the plot itself.
Which, in the plot, we've talked on the mask controversy. I will bring up the voiceover controversy.
Oh, the voiceover controversy. Yes. We will definitely. It's in my notes. I hate the voiceover. Believe me, I'm
I know.
not a fan.
I've
I've not been a fan for years. Some people don't recognize that it's not him. I recognize that it wasn't him in the theater in 1998. As you recall, I leaned over and said, "That is not fucking Donald Pleasance." While we were watching it for the very first time, because it wasn't fucking Donald Pleasance.
One of the intriguing things, based off the two things that we just brought up,
Yeah.
there are people who don't notice the mask change controversy.
See, I don't get that. That's visual. I mean, yeah. Okay. This is the first. We open with pumpkin carving, not a full jack-o'-lantern or a fall sequence, but a compromise shot of a jack-o'-lantern being carved, similar to Halloween 5, but not in a violent, weird, creepy, quick cut way. It's meant to establish the season, which is something that the other intros did in a different way. Like, this is to, reestablish the sensation of trick-or-treating, of the masks, of the suburban Halloweenness that didn't exist in 4 and 5 because they leaned into the Midwest of it all, and didn't exist in 6 because Halloween was outlawed. So this is trying to lean back into that, and it does it effectively.
And juxtaposing behind this is my biggest rail.
Yeah.
The thing that I fight against anytime somebody brings it up and wants to be in a Halloween movie. Damn Mr. Sandman.
Yes.
I hate its inclusion. I'm sorry. If you like this song, come at me, bro.
It's making its second appearance in the franchise.
Yep.
Its first being in Halloween 2. It will make more. Sadly. It makes another appearance in this movie. This is its first appearance in H20. But what we get is a car, a gold Kia, actually.
It was a Ford.
It looked like the Kia.
It's a Ford Aspire.
Oh, the Ford Aspire looks exactly like the Kia Rio of its era.
I know
they
this.
look the same.
I know this because it's the exact same car that Jen Bunch had in college.
Fair enough.
That she bought in '97.
Well, it pulls up in front of a house in Langdon, Illinois, and out steps Marion Chambers from Halloween's 1 and 2, wearing a nurse's outfit, so we remember she's a fucking nurse.
Unlike in Halloween 2.
And she goes up to her front door and finds that her front door is open. Her house light has been smashed. Someone has broken into her house.
Yes.
Having lived through Halloween's 1 and 2, she's not an idiot. She goes next door to get some help.
Yep.
And that is when we get Jimmy and his friend. I can never remember his friend's name.
I can never remember his friend's name, but this was a big summer for his friend.
Yes.
Because he started it off as Kenny's friend in Can't Hardly Wait.
He did.
And he ends the summer as Jimmy's friend in Halloween H20.
He does. Jimmy, who, by the way, is Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yes. So, he's always friend to a much bigger star.
Right. Yes. Poor guy. So Marion Chambers is like, let's call the police. They do. And then Jimmy's like, we're going to go next door and investigate. Because Jimmy's a teenager, and he frankly thinks it's kind of cool to go in and check out what's going on in this B&E. And he takes his hockey stick and his friend, and they go next door. His friend chickens out. Jimmy goes inside.
Obviously, I could never live in a horror movie. Because I'm
not going into the house and somebody broke in. Fuck you. Yeah, no.
I'll wait for the cops. That's what they're paid for.
Exactly.
God damn it, JGL.
So Joseph Gordon-Levitt goes inside, peeks around, figures some stuff out.
Sees her office, which is
trashed. Goes into the kitchen. Having not run into a thief, he goes into the fridge, steals some beers. An ironing board kind of pops out to give you a nice little jump scare. He freaks out and smashes all of her pots and pans with his stick. But there's no reason for him to believe that somebody's inside, so he leaves. He's like, it's all good. Oh, but they trashed your office. And they did a real number on your kitchen. Good night. And the teenagers go next door to drink their stolen beers. Marion gives up on the cops because it's been a while, goes inside, finds that the power's out, goes and gets a flashlight and starts looking around, goes into her office, and the first thing she sees is a picture of Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis and a file that says Laurie Strode.
But it's just the file folder?
There's no file inside.
There's no file.
It's like Michael folded up nice and neat and put it in the pockets of his coveralls.
At least he's conscientious, man.
Right.
I mean, he trashes everything else, but he neatly, gingerly takes that.
And there's some creepy noises, and she looks and she sees the back door swinging open, and
she looks at the front door.
Which
is open.
Also open, and there's a second where if this were any other horror movie and any other horror character, she would go to the back door to figure out what's going on. She visually goes, nope, and goes out the front door, which is directly behind her, and goes next door to the house again.
And we get this great shot of Michael while she's contemplating and looking from door to door. She looks at the front door, and he walks behind her, just like something out of Halloween.
Yeah.
And then she turns and looks at the back door. He's already gone, and shakes her head. Nope.
She runs next door. She knocks on the door. She goes inside, and she sees Joseph Gordon-Levitt sitting on a couch with a fucking hockey blade in his face.
Jimmy, we hardly knew you.
And the other kid comes in. He's been stabbed. He falls down. Michael shows up. Michael is Michael again. He's not overly brutal like 4, 5, or 6 Michael. It's not bloody. This is a stalker Michael who grabs and stabs and is very blood-free.
At this point.
At this point in time in the movie. At all points in this movie, this scene is the most like Halloween.
Yep.
This is the scene. When I talk about this movie capturing the spirit of Halloween, I'm talking about this scene.
Yes.
I'm talking about
the opening.
Chris Durand perfectly embodying John Carpenter's Michael Myers in the opening of Halloween H20.
Yes.
Maybe not necessarily the rest of the movie. But this scene, boom, fuck yes. So, Marion gets killed. The cops show up. There's this great moment where the cops actually show up at Marion's house, and she's in the other house dying, smashes out a window to get their attention. They don't hear it because they're going into her house.
Managed to finally scream, but they don't hear it.
Because they're next door.
And Michael pulls her back out the window.
Yep.
Like, no.
No, you're not getting away this time. You survived 2 movies. You don't get through 3.
You're not allowed to survive that many movies. There's only 2 people who can do that.
Yep.
And one of them's just back for this movie. The other one, well, we know who Sam is.
So, So she gets killed. The cops come out and they find that this other house has been broken into because the window that Marion smashed out. They're calling it in when this car just slowly creeps out of that driveway with its lights off, pulls out, starts driving past them, and then turns its lights off and speeds away.
Yep.
Michael has stolen this car. He's got the information. He knows where Laurie Strode is. It's fucking over. His long 20-year wait. And then we get the next day. It's rainy. There's detectives. It's a stormy night.
So it's a stormy morning.
Day. These 2 cops are exploring Marion Whittington, because she's not Marion Chambers anymore, house. We reveal that she was Dr. Loomis's nurse. We establish the Halloween of it all.
Yes.
And this is largely where some of the Charles S. Dutton stuff was supposed to be.
Yes.
You get the impression that the black cop, who is now like, no, I know everything about this case, was going to be Charles S. Dutton.
Yes.
And then they were like, we can keep that, jettison the rest. And that's when we get the controversy, which is we have this opening sequence that pans around this room that is, we are meant to believe is Sam Loomis's office, not Marion's, where Sam kept files and clippings about Michael.
Yes.
Now, the cool thing about this is most of these clippings were created when they actually were going to be referencing 4, 5, and 6.
Yes.
So some of these are actually references to 4, 5, and 6.
And
so they hint at a version of the movie that didn't happen.
And the pinpoint
all reference 4, 5, and 6
yes.
locations, but ultimately are disregarded. But what we get is this voiceover from Sam Loomis. It's the Blackest Eyes speech from Halloween 1.
Yes. And it's not Donald Pleasance.
Nope.
Doesn't sound like Donald Pleasance. Sounds like somebody doing a bad impression of Donald Pleasance. I wish they'd have hired you. You'd have made like $10,000 and boom, because you do a better Donald Pleasance. This guy is a professional voiceover artist.
Yes.
It's Tom Kane.
I know. And I do a better Donald Pleasance than him. But you know who does a better Donald Pleasance than me? Donald Pleasance. And the reasoning that they gave for going with Tom Kane is that, they couldn't pull out the Donald Pleasance performance
Because all they had was the mono track where everything was mixed together.
Which is absolutely bullshit, because we know that at that exact moment in time, Halloween's 20th anniversary release was being sound mixed at Skywalker Sound from the original on-set tapes by Dean Cundy and John Carpenter. And guess who owns that footage? Fucking Miramax. They could have done it. They just didn't want to.
Well,
they were too fucking lazy to research, hey, where's the original audio recordings? Where's the original Nagra tapes? John's got them. He's doing it for this release. We're funding that's going through Anchor Bay.
When they released the last Blu-ray for the special box office set, they gave an entirely different reason.
Oh, what's the reason now? Because that was the 98 reason.
The 2014 reasoning is the pacing wasn't right for what we wanted it to be. It's great in the movie, but for the pan-arounds and where we needed to be, there's no way we could have chopped it up and kept the dramatic intonation of Donald Pleasance's speech for what we wanted.
Yeah, but you could have cut the visuals around the audio. If the goal was to use that audio, you could have easily done that by doing it the other way.
I found a mistake.
Yeah.
In one of the articles.
Yeah. What's that?
There's the one of the important one where they zoom in about Laurie Strode dying in a car crash.
Yeah.
That the survivor of the Halloween murders in 1968.
Well, that means there are two mistakes here. Because there's also the article that says that Laurie Strode, Haddonfield High School, class of 1978. Which she would not have been the class of 1978.
Correct.
Because this happened on Halloween of 1978 while she was a senior in high school. So she would have been the class of 79.
Yes.
So that's 2 year mistakes.
But that's a big one.
Oh, the 68.
I mean that's 10 years before the movie took place.
Exactly.
This is not Halloween H20.
No. And sadly, there is no Halloween H30, but there is Halloween H40. That's coming soon.
Or Halloween H20 2.0.
So yeah, the intro's great except for the fucking voiceover, and then we smash cut into a dream sequence.
Yes.
Which is it's an odd. It's not a very compelling visual dream sequence.
Also, because
it's just Laurie's office with her name written on it and a picture of her son with a knife through it, and then Laurie wakes up screaming.
Well, she also there is one moment of brilliance.
Yeah.
Where
it pans toward the closet and the door opens up, and then we flash cut through to Halloween.
And then we come out of the closet.
Yeah.
And
that's a good moment.
But like my problem with it is I don't know what it is when I'm watching it at first.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
It doesn't seem like a traditional cinematic dream sequence.
No.
It seems like we're POVing. I'm expecting a killer to show up.
And then nothing happens.
And then, yeah.
And then we smash cut through that to Lori waking up screaming, and we get a lot of information all at once here, and it's handled pretty deftly. When John shows up and he comforts his mom, he goes to the pills to figure out which ones she needs because she had a nightmare, and he goes through and there's lots of pills in that counter, and we see that she is obviously well medicated for her issues.
Yes.
And that, she is a damaged woman, and we establish all of that in a 2-minute scene.
And it's a thing that now we know so much more about in real life.
Yes.
The idea of the parenting child.
Yes.
As time has passed, but this is 1998. It's not that big a thing.
It's really not.
It's explained deftly, and you immediately know what's going on, and we haven't heard about it as much in the news. We get smashes and everything, but compared to today where you know about it, but it's beautiful.
Yeah,
and
it's quick and it's
well
simple.
handled.
Yeah, very simple.
That's the key always for Halloween success: simplicity, simplicity, simplicity.
Yes. Then we really quickly. Well, first we have John saying that he's going to go on the school trip to Yosemite.
No, he's not.
And Lori's like, no, you're not. We also have, and we're moving through things very quickly.
And
there's a birthday card that's 2 months late that's given to John that shows that he's 17, establishing that he is the same age that his mother was 20 years earlier.
Yep.
Same age that his aunt was 35 years earlier.
But not really.
Not really.
Because that's a change to make it work for this movie.
Yes, but it establishes the number 17 as a thing. It establishes that the dad is alive, that John knows who he is. We don't have to deal with any sort of the revelation that he's Michael Myers' nephew.
Yeah.
It's all here. And boom, 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 we go straight down the line. He goes to school. He finds out that his girlfriend can't go on the Yosemite trip because her dad flaked on flaked on her financial aid.
Yep.
His friends don't want to go because it's lame and they've already been. And
they were only going to go if the two of them went because
Right.
you want to do things with your friends.
And Charlie doesn't want to go anyways because Charlie just wants to have sex with his girlfriend.
Yes.
Boom. There's
Meet the kids.
Meet the kids. Done. Better than any Halloween movie before or since. Done better than any Friday movie before or since. It's a 3-minute scene. It establishes everyone's motivations. It establishes everyone's character. We're done.
Yes.
And it's a perfectly well constructed scene. So the kids decide they're gonna skip Yosemite and stay with Molly and John.
Yeah, so they're going to figure out somehow to make this happen.
Exactly.
And then we get the rest area.
The rest area, which is the next scene that if somebody says, this captures the spirit of Halloween in a tense slasher movie moment, that this is Michael Myers, this is the scene you point to.
Yep.
A scene in which Michael's car has blown its tire, so he stops at a rest area. A woman stops at a rest area with her daughter. They go to the ladies' room. The ladies' room is locked. They have to go into the men's room. There's no lights in the men's room. They go in. They
set a rock to keep the door open.
To keep the door open. They go into the stalls. There's no toilet paper. This scene is controlled by Michael Myers, and he's not even there yet.
Yep.
The rock is moved. The door slams shut. The mother pulls some tissues out of her purse to give to the daughter, sets the purse down. Michael snatches up the purse, takes the car keys out of the purse, and throws the purse back down. Boom. Massive high tension. And this woman now has the choice of either going through this door and confronting the person who just stole her keys, who looks like a very large gentleman,
And we're seeing him from the slit in between
Yes.
the stall door and the stall wall. That in real life,
maybe an inch.
maybe inch and a half gap. And
So you're not seeing a lot.
No,
but it's enough to establish what you're seeing. And then he just walks out of frame.
He walks out of frame,
and she's creeping closer and closer to that slit in the door so she can see what's going on, so that she can react. And before she can, her daughter starts screaming, and she bursts out the door and comes around the corner, and the daughter is just upset because there were spiders in the bathroom stall, and Michael's nowhere to be seen.
For half a second, you're like, oh, before the spider, you're like, oh my God, Michael's killing a kid. Why Michael's killing a kid?
Right, exactly. And then you realize that Michael has stolen the car and is driving away.
Yep.
And that's it. And it's nail-bitingly tense, without ever needing to have an unnecessary kill moment.
Correct.
Brilliant sequence. And then we're back into the world of Summer Glen, California, and the Hillcrest Academy, where Laurie Strode has an unethical relationship with school counselor Will
Brennan,
played by Adam Arkin. And who wouldn't like Adam Arkin? He's a fun guy.
He's always a fun guy. Like I liked him back on Northern Exposure, where he was like the Bigfoot.
Yeah. John wants to go off campus to get some wine for the planned evening that the group has come up with, where they're going to have food, so he's going to sneak out.
His friend knows about his mom, because he's like, why don't we just take your mom's booze? We're right here. It's right here. No, she marks it. She's a functioning alcoholic.
Well, they don't actually have that conversation until they're out of town. First, they have to, out in town. First, they have to get past the guard, Ronnie, LL Cool J. Ronnie, not our first Ronnie, not our last Ronnie in this franchise. Ronnie's just an aspiring novelist who wants to write cheap fantasy novels. And he's reading them to his wife on the phone when John shows up and is like, hey, let me out. And he's like, I'm not allowed to let you out.
Like I had trouble the last time I did it.
So John convinces him, like, hey, you press the button and I sneak out. And eventually LL agrees.
I love the reason why LL agrees is because he's on his phone with his girlfriend, his wife, talking about the book. They come up. She hears that side of the conversation. She's like, don't you do it. So he's like, and that's what makes him do it, because his wife said, don't you do it.
Yep.
Come here.
So they sneak out. They have the conversation. But Laurie and Will are having an off-campus lunch.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is where we establish that Laurie is definitely a functioning alcoholic. They have a bantering conversation about, her troubles. She has a full glass of Chardonnay. He goes to the bathroom. She orders a second glass of Chardonnay, chugs the first one, downs the second one to the level where it was at, and hands the empty glass from the first one to the waiter, all while Will is gone.
Folks, this is not easy to do.
No, not at all.
Like, I've chugged a glass of wine before.
Yes.
I'm not afraid. I'm not ashamed to admit it. It burns. Mm-hmm. I've done white wine, like a Chardonnay. It burns. It's hard to do, and hard to do that quickly. Now, I understand movie magic and everything, so it probably wasn't wine.
Probably not. Or maybe we don't know her life. Let's not talk about Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's why I said
she might be able to
That's why I said probably.
Right.
But it just shows just how far gone. This is a moment where it's like, oh, our sweet Laurie Strode. Carrie Tate.
Carrie Tate, Laurie Strode. Carrie Tate's her fake name. This is the first time we're dealing with real trauma.
Yeah.
We will deal with it again before this podcast is up, because we deal with it again in the Rob Zombie movies in a much more targeted, visceral way. And we're going to deal with it again in Halloween H20, which, if you're listening to this, you've now already heard us talk about that.
Yep.
Because, spoiler alert, we're recording this before the release, but it will be airing after the release. Yep. So it's a theme of the franchise, and it starts right here in Halloween H2O for real.
So So future me, I hope you like it.
Yeah. Well, future me will. Yeah, we'll see.
However,
So this is
past me will have told you already.
right. This is where Lori actually does catch John and Charlie having a conversation about her being a functioning alcoholic. She takes them home. They have a shouting argument on the street about, you can't be handcuffed to your dead brother anymore, blah, blah, blah. Michael Myers is dead. No, he's not. Spoiler alert, he's not. Because Michael follows them to Hillcrest Academy.
Yes.
Jamie yells at Ronnie for letting the kids out. And frankly, he deserves it. And Michael drives away, letting Lori and John and Charlie go back to work, at school. Then John takes Molly on a tour of the secret hidden area where they're going to have their feast, which is hidden deep in the bowels of one of the buildings. There's a map that leads them there. And he's talking about, he never celebrated Halloween because they have a killer in the family, and it seemed in poor taste. It's very Williamson-y. There's a lot of these Williamson-y moments here, and this is one of them. Yes. Then we have a classroom scene with Laurie as the instructor talking about Frankenstein, and Molly as a student sort of echoing the fate conversation from Halloween 1. Where Molly is now sort of cast in the Laurie role, and Laurie is the teacher. And Molly sees Michael through the window outside of the grounds of the school, and mentions that everyone is, sort of locked into their own fate, which rings with Laurie and starts to remind her of Michael.
And there's a key moment in that. There's that lock-in.
Yeah.
And then there's... Because that ties in with Halloween.
Yes.
But this is H20. It needs its own through line as well.
Yep.
So, Laurie asked her, why do you think Dr. Frankenstein, I can't remember his
Victor.
name. Victor. Why do you think Victor now chose to fight his monster now? Because he had nothing left to lose.
Yep.
And that's the modern through line. But if you're looking at the scene and her looking out the window, you're missing it.
Yeah.
Like, it's designed to be a throwaway, but it's the important theme.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's Laurie's sequence.
Yeah.
But it's done in such a way that if you're just a Halloween purist and you're looking for connection to John's movie, you've got that too. It's establishing Molly as sort of the heir to Laurie instead of John, who is actually Laurie's child. And Laurie asks John to stay behind afterwards. She's decided that John can go to Yosemite after all. Yeah. So John's not going to Yosemite. All the kids have there's an assembly. The kids get on buses and they leave for Yosemite, but not John, Molly, Charlie, or Sarah. Sorry, we get 2 movies of Sarah in a row. 2 different Sarahs. We do have this great moment with the character of Norma, who is Carrie Tate's secretary, after the kids get on the bus.
Yeah.
She has a conversation with Laurie, like, I've seen you like this before. I don't want to see you like this. You have to work through your problems, blah, blah, blah. And it's a perfectly fine scene. It's a throwaway scene. I'd cut it in any other movie. The only reason it's not cut, the only reason it's here, is because Norma is Janet Leigh, who is Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, and Norma, named Norma after Norman Bates, says this dialogue before walking across the way to get in her exact same car she was buried in Psycho.
Yep.
Literally the same car. It's not the same type of car. That's the one. So it's a reference to both Halloween and Psycho and their connection, both through Jamie and Janet Leigh and through John referencing Psycho in that movie, as much as it creates this sort of meta through line that's kind of neat, because I guarantee you Robert Zappia didn't write this scene. I guarantee you the scene was written by Kevin Williamson. The analytical dialogue that Norma spouts is way too Williamsonian to not be Williamson. So the guy who wrote Scream, which thoroughly references Halloween, writes a scene for a Halloween movie which thoroughly references Psycho that puts all three of those elements together in a blender. And it's a 1998 moment that you couldn't have in a movie made in 96, wouldn't have in a movie made 2 years later.
Nope.
It's a product of the time, and it's a perfect tribute to all three of those movies in one sequence.
Yes.
It's a brilliant, brilliant thing. Throwaway scene regardless. So the kids start sneaking around to do their Halloween thing. Ronnie accidentally lets Michael on campus.
And he does some Michael toying with Ronnie. Like, you see him in the background.
You really think he's going to kill Ronnie in this sequence,
Like,
but
but
he's got bigger fish to fry, so he heads off. I really think Michael would have let Ronnie live if Ronnie never got in his way. Ronnie wouldn't have done anything to him. Michael wouldn't have done anything to Ronnie.
Michael
he
doesn't do anything to
Ronnie. Yes. But he accidentally lets Michael loose. Laurie is walking across campus, and she sees Michael off in the distance. She has had visions of Michael throughout the movie so far, and she usually closes her eyes, counts 10, and opens her eyes, and Michael's gone. She does that this time. She opens her eyes, and Michael's still there coming toward her. She does it again. Michael's still there coming toward her. She does it again. Michael's gone, and there is Will slamming into her. And Will explains that he's off looking for the stragglers. You know, he's doing his job. They're going to meet up at her place.
Yeah.
After he's done that, she goes off thinking, okay, it was just my imagination. And Will actually sees someone off in the distance. He catches a glimpse of Michael as well.
Yes.
So Michael's really there. And Will does go off and look after the stragglers. He meets up with Molly, and there's, you know, some witty banter.
Yes.
And the unnecessary scene that blows open the time-space continuum in a reference to a reference to a reference, which I hate. I've been against this scene for 20 years. I've hated this scene. Because the girls are watching Scream 2. I understand. The girls are watching Scream 2. It's a Miramax movie. It's a reference to the time. It's a perfectly logical movie for them to be watching on their TV in their dorm room in October of 2018.
Yes, I know.
Except the movie didn't come out on VHS until October of 1998, until November of 1998. Just saying. Like, it actually wasn't out on video. It would not have been available for them to watch. That's not my complaint, though. My complaint is that Scream 2 is the sequel to Scream 1, in which the entire third act is set to the backdrop of Jamie Kennedy watching fucking Halloween.
I know.
It bothers me to no end.
Jay and Silent Bob being in Scream 3.
That bothers me, too.
I know. We'll talk about it in the Gail Withers book club. I get to say it, too.
I mean, I like their cameo, but I wish it wasn't in that movie. I like this sequence. I wish they were watching I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I wish they'd have just kept the original joke, because on set
they were watching Mike Myers.
They were watching So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Should have been fine too.
Which gave the Mike Myers joke.
Yeah.
One of the reasons they went because of the popularity of Scream, and there's a line about Sarah taking care, which is said at the same time where Sarah Michelle Gellar is starting to get chased.
Yes.
And he's being chased in that shot by Chris Durand.
Yes.
Like, it's meta within meta within meta, but I would have been so happy to have gone, oh, they're watching a movie about Mike Myers and a movie with Michael Myers. Right. Shit, that's funny.
Right. Yes. Okay, so everything's fine. The teens head off to their feast. Will comes over to hang out with Laurie.
Yes.
They're eating they have made all the foods. All the foods.
All the leftover food.
All the leftover foods, and they're going to eat them. They're getting set up. Meanwhile, Will and Laurie are, having a little smoochy time. Laurie is telling Will who she really is.
He thinks it's playtime at first.
He thinks it's playtime. They're doing a weird thing where they're making out with candy corn, which just seems risky. It just seems risky. Like, in the middle of, French kissing, while passing candy corn between your mouth. One of you's gonna choke on some fucking candy corn. But, maybe I'm doing it wrong. It just seems like a risk. Just saying.
I don't know. We'll talk about candy corn later in the series too, folks.
Oh, candy corn. So yes, she's explaining who she is and giving the backstory. While over on the other side, they want to open the fucking wine, so they send Charlie off for a corkscrew. Laurie gets through the backstory. She's like, "I'm Laurie Strode."
The thing that the great moment is, they're not presenting this as her just telling her story.
Yeah.
Because as she's telling the story, Will starts saying it along with her.
Right, because
the
everyone
world knows.
Exactly. Everybody knows the story about Michael Myers.
And Laurie Strode. But didn't she die or something?
She didn't die. She faked her death and became the headmistress of a very posh private school in Northern California.
Scared every year that her brother's
going to find her, which is a beautiful moment. It's well acted. And then she pieces it together. That he came back to kill her when she was 17. And in the context of this movie, he killed Judith when she was 17. And John is now 17. And here he is.
Yep.
And she says that because she sees the card on the mantle. And it's well constructed visually. So she runs to John's room. And she sees that John's bag is still there and he didn't go to Yosemite. She goes to pick up the phone to call the police, but the phone is dead. And Laurie Strode understands what's going on. She knows Michael's here.
Yes.
And Michael has cut off the phone. And John is still here because John is defying me, and now Michael can kill John. If he was at Yosemite, he'd be safe. So she goes to her room, she gets a gun, it's time to go.
Now let's cut back to Charlie and his corkscrew adventure, because it's fallen down into the garbage disposal sink.
And he turns on the garbage disposal
to establish
that it's working. And I believe, I've had to reach into the garbage disposal to grab stuff too. I would do this as well, just to make sure. That's on, that's off.
Oh, I've done it. I did it in the 737 apartment.
Yeah. So you reach in, he reaches in slowly. You see him in an interior shot where he's fishing around. You think Michael's going to turn on this thing and just chew his arm up.
This is my note, and I'll read it verbatim.
Yeah.
You better lose that hand.
Right, and you get used to, the tension here is palpable, and then he pulls out the corkscrew. Everything's fine. He turns around, and there's Michael Myers. Defying expectations and stabbing him.
Yes. My note after he better lose that hand, ... doesn't.
Yeah. Sarah comes looking for him, doesn't find him until she looks inside the dumbwaiter where he's dead. That's when she turns around and finds Michael Myers. And Michael's coming toward her to kill her. Her only choice is to try to get into the dumbwaiter and lift herself up. She gets in, she gets caught on Charlie. She gets to the second floor, she's trying to get out, but she's tangled up in her dead boyfriend. And Michael, meanwhile, is chopping the rope on the dumbwaiter.
I just love, he's just, do. It's matter of fact.
Yeah.
He looks up, sees it go up. Fuck that.
And frankly, this is the most scene in the whole thing, because it's cut and the sound is
yes.
realistic. So when that thing falls, you get this shot of her leg with the prosthetic squishing.
Yes.
Followed by a snap noise, followed by her pulling herself out with a bisected leg with a bone sticking out of it.
Yes.
It's ghoulishly effective. And then Michael goes upstairs to go kill the wounded girl. I'm good.
Oh, he's Michael Myers.
Yep.
Oh, wait,
He's really Michael Myers. He wounded his prey, he's letting it do its thing, and he's going to go get it because he knows he can pick it off.
So we've got the familial connection, and we've got the shape. So he's the Shape Myers, Michael the Shape?
Yep.
This is the only movie that treads the line.
Yeah.
He is both.
He's both, yeah. And Sarah ultimately gets stabbed in the back a few times.
Oh, yes.
Then John and Molly go looking for their friends because they've been gone a long time.
Oh, they're probably up there going to scare us.
Yeah.
It's Halloween. Yeah.
They go into one room and they turn on the lights, and Sarah's hanging from the light switch with lights around her and sparking, and they realize that they got to run because Michael Myers is here, and they go running through the woods. He almost catches Molly. John is chivalrous and tries to save her, and that gets him stabbed in the leg.
And thrown to the ground. Like, Michael's like, fuck you, kid.
They hobble to the dorms just barely ahead of him. They get through this little gate that's a vestibule in front of the actual door. Molly drops her keys. They bounce outside of the gate. Michael's coming up quickly. She tries to reach for them. She can't. So they can't actually get into the door. Michael picks up the keys and starts fumbling, trying to figure out which key opens the gate. Molly starts banging on the door to get somebody to let her in. Everyone's at the fucking trip. Meanwhile, Lori, Will, and Ronnie have met up and are out looking for the kids. And Lori hears Molly banging on the door. She manages to open just in time for Molly and John to get on the other side. She closes the door just as Michael's opening up the gate, and the two come face to face through the window portal of the door.
Yes.
The iconic shot that was on every poster, that was in every commercial. Lori and Michael face to face for the first time since 1978. And honestly, aside from the scene where she ripped his mask off, this is the closest they've ever been.
Yep.
But they're separated by a door.
She reaches down to pull the gun out of her waistband.
And he just disappears.
And when she
It's
comes
Michael
back
Myers.
up, gone. Because, Michael Myers.
There is a cute reference because while Molly's fumbling for the keys, there is actually an ADR insert of her just saying, "the keys," which is exactly what they did in John Carpenter's Halloween to demonstrate what she was doing when she was digging through her pockets.
Right.
Because Lori also had a key fumble, it's a great little callback. So they run off to get out of the building. Lori sees that there's windows open, so he's probably in the building because Michael can do that. So she pushes the kids into a closet, runs further down.
Well, as soon as she puts in, this is a keynote that I want to hit. It's suddenly there's been the whole Carrie Tate persona. Now,
it's immediately dismissed, and the traumatic Lori, the Lori who can't handle things, is gone, and we're back to do as I say
and
now.
That's what
Laurie
I want
Strode.
because that's the line when she shoves the kids in, and it's important we hit that.
She's once again, she can revert back to being the babysitter. At the very least, she can be that person she was then.
And at the end of the day, be it Carrie Tate, school principal, headmistress,
exactly.
Laurie Strode, babysitter, this character is a caretaker protector.
Exactly. So she gets the kids sorted, runs out, looks for a place where she herself can hide, finds a closet, and says, "Oh, fuck." Doesn't go in there. But there's also a Will moment that's coming up. Her and Will get to this window, and she's like, "Get out and run." He refuses, and he sees what he thinks is the shape rounding a corner. He grabs Laurie's gun and fires. And what he fires at is LL Cool J's, is Ronnie. And the gun gets dropped and pushed out of the way. Then the actual Michael shows up, stabs Will in the back, lifts him up, and we get sort of we get a Nurse Jill reboot. It's just as effective here, but it also establishes why Laurie loses her gun.
Yes.
That's what it's there for. It's to level the playing field. So Laurie doesn't have a gun. She runs back. She's got blood in her hands. She gets to the closet. Then we have the moment I teased earlier where she opens the closet door to hide, realizes it's another fucking closet. Like, oh, fuck. Closes that door, locks it. Michael comes around, sees bloody handprint on the door, starts trying to open it, starts cutting through it, bashes the door open. He's going after Laurie in a closet. She's not in the fucking closet.
She comes around the corner with a fire extinguisher and fucking nails Michael Myers in the head. And he falls.
Because
he's Michael Myers.
She runs to the door where John and Molly are, opens that door up. As she's doing that, Michael is springing back up behind them, doing the sit-up movement.
Yes.
She gets the kids. Molly and Lori together support John. They prop him up. They run out of the building. They get to Lori's car. Car has a little trouble starting, but it does start. She gets it in gear right as Michael stops at the driver's side door, and they peel off.
Yes.
And they get to the gate. And they open the gate. And this is when Lori gets out of the fucking car. And Lori's like, I want you to drive down the street to the Becker's house. And I want you to call the police. She delivers almost exactly the same line of dialogue about going down to the street to the Mackenzie's house from Halloween 1, which was stolen by Scream.
Yes.
By the Beckers, who live down the street from the Mackenzies. So now you go to the Beckers' house, who also live in California. So they might actually be the Beckers.
And they're out in the middle of nowhere, just like where the Beckers lived.
Right.
And Molly's like, she doesn't want to go. And John's like, you're coming with us. And she does it again, just like she did in Halloween. Do as I say now.
And then she placates them. I'll be right behind you. I'll be right behind you. And they drive away. And she smashes the gate because she's not going to be right behind them. She's ending this now.
Yes.
She goes to the guard station. She smashes open the emergency glass and grabs a fucking axe and starts screaming Michael as she heads back toward the school. And then we get this fight between Lori and Michael that starts in this building. He's hanging up on pipes. He's dropping down behind her. They're stabbing each other.
She turns and wails him with the axe, and he pulls it out.
Axe. Yes. She stabs him. It goes into the kitchen. They're throwing knives at each other. Goes into the dining room. She's hiding under tables. He's on top of the tables. She's moving from table to table. He's flipping them. She's stabbing him with fucking flagpoles. They go back upstairs. There's more stabbing. She manages to get some kitchen knives and stabs the shit out of him, causing him to fall through a porthole window into the dining room and onto a table himself. She goes down to finish the fucking job.
Like, you see it.
It's just a chaotic sequence, but it's all fleshed out. You don't lose track of what's going on in the sequence at any point. It's a very well executed action sequence.
And as she rears back to deliver the final blow after this onslaught of action, not dead Ronnie comes up and grabs her and goes, he's dead, man. He's dead. Stop.
LL Cool J's alive. LL lives. And he pulls Lori off of Michael. And we start to see red and blue flashing.
Yes.
And the cops are here. And people are getting loaded up. And Michael gets, put in a body bag and is being carried out. And,
She's getting bandaged up because that damn son of a bitch, Michael Myers, managed to slice her on the arm in the exact same spot he did back in 78.
Exactly. So what is Lori to do? I mean, she knows better. She knows he's not dead. She's been through this shit before. Well, she steals a gun from one of the cops, grabs the axe that she had used earlier, and points the gun at the coroners, telling them to load Michael into the coroner's van.
Yes.
Which she steals.
Oh, yeah.
And drives off campus with. Because she knows that Michael's about to pop back up any minute, and she's fucking ending this. It's over. She's not going to let this happen. And true to form, Michael sits up, pulls himself out of the body bag, starts moving toward Laurie Strode. She slams on the brakes. He goes flying through the windshield. Not the last time Michael will fly through a coroner van windshield. He gets up again, and she guns it, slams into him, and goes falling over this cliff. And this is the moment where I'm going to talk about the music controversy. It's not really a controversy, but it pisses me off. All the music in this movie was initially written by John Ottman, who did the score for Superman Returns. He did the score for this. He did the score for Usual Suspects.
He directed the movie Urban Legends Final Cut.
He did. And he wrote a beautiful score, and it was very well put together. But Miramax didn't like it in a lot of places, so they just took music from the Scream score and plugged it in. Just literally plug and play. I've gone back and I've checked, and it's the exact same cue in the exact same places.
Which holds true with Miramax's history throughout of Bob and Harvey recutting movies that they've purchased to suit how they feel the movie should be.
Exactly. And in this particular instance, the reason I'm bringing it up here is because what we basically have is we have chase scenes earlier in the movie where they use the chase music where Sidney's being chased by Ghostface. Here, we specifically use the exact same music cue of Gale Weathers in the van in Scream 1 going down the hill for the van in Halloween H20 going down the hill. It's terrible. I mean, it's really bad, and it takes me out of the movie in some places. But she does. She guns it. She slams him. They go down this hill. He goes flying. She jumps out of the van. The van pins him to a branch or a stump or something. It's a felled tree of some variety.
Pinned Michael between tree and van.
Yes.
Crushed, if you will.
Yes, crushed. Crushed is the right word. She grabs her axe. She walks up to Michael. Says Michael, gets his attention. He reaches out to her. She almost takes his hand and then says, well, she doesn't say, but you see on her face this look of nope. And she takes that axe, rears back, and chops his fucking head off.
Yep.
And she starts breathing heavily as the classic John Carpenter version of the Halloween theme. Not a remake, not a rescored version. The actual soundtrack version from Halloween 1 starts playing, and we fade to black. End of movie.
Yep.
Yeah, that's Halloween H20. Probably the best Jamie Lee Curtis sequel to Halloween 2. Oh, wait, it's the only one.
Yes. Not that's also a bit of a
I would say it's probably the best sequel to Halloween 2. Because Halloween 4 acts less as a sequel to Halloween 2 than this does. And more as its own sort of thing.
And this tries to ignore Halloween 2.
Yes, it does. It does, but it can't because it leans
can't,
into the Laurie Strode of it. Laurie Strode as sister of it all. But so before we give our thoughts, best kill and worst kill, what you got?
Best kill for me is
because these kills aren't very elaborate.
They're not elaborate.
They're very Halloween one-y in that they're set up and there's not a lot there. There's not a lot of heavy action sequences. There's not a lot of effects work like we've come to be used to throughout 4, 5, and 6.
I'm gonna go with Sarah.
Okay.
Because of the leg lead up, the fact that we don't actually see a bunch of the kills. Hers, we see the stabbing motion coming down.
Yes.
Yes. And it's something that's much more brutal in another movie, almost for scene.
Yeah.
But that's best kill for me because it's the longest one that we track and follow outside of Marion.
Yes. I'm going to say that the worst kill for me is, the best kill for me is the Will kill. Because it definitely evokes the Nurse Jill kill in Halloween 2, which I love. And it sets that back up and does it in a way that, there's impact to it.
Yeah.
I would say the Charlie kill is my worst kill.
Me too, because I want to see him lose that hand.
Right, yeah. Yes.
Also, it was kind of an afterthought. Charlie was actually the first person cast in this movie.
before it was
this
even
movie.
this
This
yeah.
movie. He was cast in a version that had a copycat killer as Michael Myers, killing in a boarding school. And through the changes and the iterations, like he was hired when it was still direct-to-video.
Right.
They kept him because they liked him.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah.
Even though the nature of the film has changed and he got cheated out of... He got shortchanged on the meaty role that he was hired for.
Right.
But still got to keep a role.
Yeah.
Which a lot of times in productions like this does not happen.
True.
And this wasn't going to be a kill. Jamie Lee Curtis knew that the history of him in this movie and was like, we need to spruce up his kill. We need to do something tension-wise that brings focus to him, because when I came on board, I kind of changed his movie.
Right. Like, he had a role, and I'm the reason that changed. So,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've heard about Jamie Lee Curtis over the years. She's a very generous actor.
Yeah.
Like, you hear, about actors behind the scene, you're like, this person's really a dick. And you're like, I buy that.
Yeah.
But you don't hear that about Jamie Lee Curtis.
No.
Although, from her interviews, you sometimes expect that maybe that's the case. Then you hear otherwise. Like, no, she's great. She's great to work with. She's great to work for. She's a nice lady.
Yes.
She looks out for everyone else on set, which is really kind of cool.
She's Jake Gyllenhaal's godmother.
It's refreshing to hear that.
Yeah. But, that's my disappointing kill as well.
I agree. Literally. I agree.
want his hand gone.
So here we are at the end of Halloween H20. So
Yes.
we've had this trend over the last couple of movies where we announce a number, and the budget is like maybe 3 times less than the box office take. What's the trend here? What are we looking at? What's H20?
Budget?
Yeah,
17.
7. Ooh, wow, that's big.
Yeah, that's bigger than some of the last movies made.
Yep. How much did it make?
Domestically, it made $55 million and some change.
So yes.
It's still
it's still about 3 times, but this is a success. Hollywood is fickle, folks. $5 million, we make $15 million. That's a failure. $15 million, it makes $45 million. It's a success. We did good for.
It's still the same percentage.
It's the exact same percentage. There's no fucking difference. I hate Hollywood.
I haven't brought this up in a while.
Yes.
But with H2020 looming,
Yes.
for us,
and having already hit for some of you who are listening to us after the fact and have seen the movie.
adjusted.
Yes, adjusted grosses. Adjusted grosses.
Adjusted grosses. This outside of Halloween is top dog.
That doesn't surprise me.
Because
I don't. Curtis is the big draw.
I don't often talk worldwide.
Right.
But worldwide kicks this up a bunch.
I buy that.
Adjusted to $2018.
Yeah.
So H40, you got to beat this to claim top dog. It's $108,792,000.
Well, it has to beat this, and it has to beat something it can't actually beat, because we don't have numbers.
Well, no, top dog. I'm talking top dog with the sequels.
Oh, okay. So we're proceeding from the premise that nothing can top Halloween 1.
Don't have the figures.
Because we don't know for sure.
We
for
have
all we know,
Apocrypha.
Halloween H2O may have actually topped it.
Yes.
But
that's what you need.
Sweet.
Part of me hopes you don't get it.
fair enough. I hope it does, really.
I hang out with toxic fans online, and I want to see them eat cat poop.
Oh. Well, okay. Moving on from that, though. Final thoughts about Halloween H2O before we move on to next episode's conversation about the sequel to this
I really
movie.
liked it the last time I watched it.
Same here.
The time before, I was a little bit down on it.
I've never really... I don't think I've ever watched it and not had a good time.
There are times
I've never had that moment.
There are times I watch it and I feel like it is too much of a follower of the trend of the times.
Yeah.
Like there are times it feels like I am watching Scream Creek.
Totally. I'll grant that. But what I will say is that every time I've watched it, the Marion kill at the beginning carries me through most of this movie because that is very fundamentally Halloween. And that goes a long way toward keeping me in this film.
This last time I decided not to let the kids drag me out of it.
Okay, that's fair.
So that
Making
allowed
a conscious choice.
That allowed me to appreciate all the Shape Michael Myers stuff in it.
Right. And there's surprisingly a lot of it when you actually let yourself have it. Because Steve Miner did a really good job of putting Michael in the background of sequences that you don't expect.
Yep.
Or putting something that might be Michael in some sequences you don't expect. Is that Michael? Or is that a kid across the way while they're in the restaurant having lunch? Don't know. Because there are Halloween kids walking past and back and forth. One of them looks like it might be Michael. Might not be. Might be. It's not clear, unlike when John intentionally puts Michael in the back, the shape in the back of frames in Scream in Halloween 1. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie when I saw it in theaters. I still really enjoy this movie. Every year, I do not revisit all 10 movies. I don't. I do always revisit Halloween, Halloween 4, Halloween H2O, and sometimes H2. Those are my 4. Those are my go-tos.
Okay.
This one is definitely the one I look forward to because it's an important part of my youth. This was the first Halloween movie I saw in theaters.
Yeah, me too.
When I was fresh out of high school. So
me.
Right.
I was fresh out of college, though.
And I was excited by the possibility of another Halloween movie when I found out they were going to do one. I was unsure how they were going to do it, what with a beheaded Michael Myers.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
Like, I'd watched Buffy the Vampire. Like, you know how most things die?
You cut their head off.
Yeah, like, thanks, Buffy.
Like, it kills most things. So yes, I thoroughly enjoyed it then. I thoroughly enjoy it now. I don't see it diminishing much in my eyes. 20 years hasn't killed my enjoyment of it. I don't think another 20 will. That said, who knows? Will H40 unseat it? Has H40 unseated my love of H2O?
Oh my goodness! There was something I wanted to do in our talk on the theatrical cut of Curse, and I totally forgot. So I will throw it in here at the last second.
Oh, okay.
Man, happy being Michael Myers' age in the Curse of Michael Myers.
Michael Myers was 37.
You're not 37.
Or you're the same age, 38.
You are the same age Michael Myers was in The Curse.
I'm a year older, as we record this, than Laurie Strode was in Halloween H2O.
Yeah, you were totally hip deep in Michael Myers Halloween
right?
90s ages.
I am. That was a weird moment, I will admit. Watching it a couple of weeks ago, I was like, wait a minute, she's 37. And she looks old to me. She doesn't look old. She's not like, oh my God, Jamie Lee Curtis looks old. But she looks like an adult to me still. Like I perceive her as looking older than me.
Yes.
But I am the same age that Jamie Lee Curtis was when she made the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm a year older than the character of Laurie Strode. And that was a weird moment for me. Speaking of weird moments, next week we're going to look at Halloween Resurrection. Which
totally a weird moment.
Full of weird moments. So, for Everyone's Entitled to One Good Scare, the Arkove's exclusive Halloween podcast, I have been one half of your host team, Matthew J. Blanchard. With me as always,
Patrick J. Blanchard, the other half.
We are the guys who continue to pay the late fees so you don't have to. Join us next episode, folks, when we take a look at a much, much more inferior film. Jamie Lee Curtis wants to be in this movie. It's not contractually obligated like the next one or the last one that she did.
It's like she always does one she wants, and then she's contractually obligated to appear in one after it.
Well, I mean, that scares me a little bit about what's coming up now.
Yeah.
Like, oh God, did Blumhouse contractually obligate Jamie Lee Curtis to another Halloween?
Jason Blum, are you repeating history?
Don't do it, Jason Blum. If she wanted to die in this movie, you let her die, right?